the very first thing that I want to tackle that isn't really discussed and probably can answer a lot of poker arguments on Twitter is like, what is poker to the human race? Poker is a subset of games. I would argue it's one of the two classic games, which is like poker and chess, which is, even if you don't play poker or chess, you've heard of them. Like the entire human race has heard of poker and chess. So some stuff like, what's good for poker? What's good for chess? It's like, that's kind of like what's good for humanity. Like the point of games, in my opinion, is that everyone can participate, whether you're male, female, whatever ethnicity you are, like white, black, Asian, whatever, whatever age group, you can play. That's the whole point of games. Like, there's such a wide variety of the way we're born, that's like up to variance, even more so variance than poker. Like, were you born rich? Were you born poor? Like, how is your family? What are your parents in the world? Like, you know, there's such huge variance. In fact, in poker, despite how much variance there is, you can make better decisions and try to do better in poker. So the point of games is like this subset of decision making with a certain set of rules, relatively fair. Obviously, with a game like poker, people are dealt different hands, so it's technically not fair in that sense. But with the set of rules and the conditions that we're given, we could do the best we can with the cards we're dealt. Something like chess, yeah, white has an advantage over a small advantage over black, but you know, it's a set rules, and we are all aware of the rules. So in that sense, it's fair, and we just do the best we can with our decision making. So in that sense, I feel like poker is a subset of humanity, and we in the poker community all have our own poker stories. So when I call up these special guests, I'm going to ask them for their poker story and then some kind of questions that they've been dealing with, or maybe they haven't had their take when, you know, the Twitter wars go down. Shout out to Ashley Michelle in the YouTube chat, Patrick Curran, the Live at the Bike graphics engineer, Jeffrey Deschelt, Taylor Carroll, Stable Genius, and a bunch of regs. So yeah, that's basically the gist. And a lot of televised poker is No Limit Hold'em, and No Limit Hold'em is by far the best form of poker to watch, and that's why it, you know, it's popular. When you see even stuff with Pot Limit Omaha, it's really hard to keep track of the cards. Even somebody very experienced with streaming and very experienced with the game, like me, just like I will miss hands all the time because there's just so many cards. And Limit Hold'em, there's been a lot of complaints. People can't keep track of the action. There's less tension with Limit Hold'em. Like, will he call? Will he not call? It's like a lot of it's more mechanical, even though the skill level in all forms of poker are very deep. I know Ashley Michelle plays a wide variety of games. But basically, everyone has their poker story. Like, we all know a lot of the famous people like Daniel Negreanu, Antonio Esfandiari, Doyle Brunson, Johnny Chan, just like, but we want to include everybody in the Live at the Bike community to basically tell their story in the scene. So I've alluded to what I've done in poker in the last, you know, 15 years. Like, a lot of people don't realize actually I have a huge extensive history and kind of settled on what I'm doing now. So basically, when I was a teenager, I was extremely competitive in esports. I was #1 in the world in several of them, most notably StarCraft. I went back to school because the internet was just too in its infancy, and esports was too in its infancy, and I just felt like I had to grow up. And basically, I was also competing at the national level in several other games, esports, and then the poker boom came along, and college prices were just way too high. As you guys probably know, there's $1.5 trillion in student loan debt, and I did not want to be a contributor to that. So when I was doing well in poker while I was going to school, it was kind of decision, do I drop out to do poker, or do I play poker while going to school and pay for my education? I remember Ashley Michelle had that similar dilemma. She wanted to go to med school, and then basically, hopefully, she'll tell her story in the Live of the Bike forums. So, being Asian American, it's pretty bad karma to not finish college. It's yeah, there's a lot of social pressure, and I'm not against people completing college. There's been a lot of talk that it's like a waste of time now. It's not. I don't think it's a waste of time, but people just can't look at college as like the holy grail. Like once you finish college, you get a job and you have a 40-year career. One of the good aspects of college is it's a defense against people thinking that you're dumb. It's not an indicator that you're necessarily smart, but it means you're responsible, and you can, when given a responsibility, you can complete stuff. Like a lot of the house players are highly educated. I've talked before. Like I went to UC San Diego with Maria Ho, Steve Sung, Joseph Chiang here. Steve went to Juilliard. Jason went to Berkeley. A couple people went to law school. Mike Lamas went to law school. But it's just like we settle on the poker. One, because we like it, it's tolerable versus, and it's a more stable way to make money. So that's one of the choices. Keeping your foot, and Sean Snyder graduated from UC Santa Barbara too, but we leave our foot on the base and not just like go all in with poker, basically like what Mike McDermott did in Rounders, and we were able to do okay. So basically, yeah, I tried to do both. I was playing live with Maria Ho. Basically, we start from the bottom, 3-6 limit hold'em. The games were a lot easier back then. The rake was lower. It was $4 tops, no flop, no drop. If there were 2 games, we could table change and come behind without posting. I'm sure that I haven't been to San Diego in quite a while, but I'm sure they've changed that. Online came in about 2004, basically around the moneymaker boom. Like online poker was still around, but it wasn't as prevalent. But then once people see Chris Moneymaker win the World Series of Poker, all hell breaks loose, because it's like everyone knew his story. He won a small satellite, qualified for the World Series through Poker Stars, and then just wins the whole damn thing. In which people say, oh, he sucks. It's like, actually, he was just dealt winners predominantly through the tournament. I only recall one hand he played poorly, which is, it was like raise, re-raise, and he cold called 3 with 4-5 off. But every other hand, at least that was televised, he was just dealt the winning hand, and he coolered the other guy, or they both had legitimate reason to be in the pot, and he was just dealt the winning hand, which is obviously variance in the game. So at that point, I started with Paradise Poker and did okay. It wasn't like a big deal. Only won a couple thousand, and then Party Poker was kind of like the first initial boom. Like we started small, like I don't remember, $1, $2, $4, and then that was the era where me and a bunch of buddies would 12 table and eventually 16 table, 15-30 limit hold'em, and that was the first start for multi-tabling. And this was possible because there was a skin for, I think there were multiple skins, but the skin that I used was Eurobet, and we were given some rake back, more so than the normal deal, which obviously is extra cash. And one of the things too is like poker is hard enough, and if you're free rolling a way to get subsidized, which in the form of rake back, or say I'm a house player now, or like Bart Hansen, Doug Polk run a training site. I work on Live at the Bike. You do coaching and other things. There's a lot of other ways to stabilize and subsidize their professional poker career, because back then the game was a lot easier. There was access to online, in which the era was relatively easy to win. So even though I started from the bottom and did well, I don't know. It's definitely possible to do it today. And I disagree with Daniel Negreanu that he says it's easier. It's definitely easier back then. I don't know what the hell he's smoking. But in my opinion, it's much harder now because of the competition. Because in winning in poker, more so than you being good, it's reliant on your opponent being bad. And that's something that is commonly, I guess, forgotten in this era, because people are saying, oh, this guy's so good, like, Garrett's super good, Andy's super good, Brian Kim's super good, Art Papazian's super good. Yeah, they are super good, but they are also relying on people playing with people worse than them. That's how you make money. If everybody at the table is good, who's making money? So in that era, like Limit Hold'em, we would 16 table, and then No Limit came out, which was very unstudied, especially in the online form. So, you know, we would get stacked a couple times, you learn, and then at that time, in my opinion, it was the easiest form that poker has ever been. No Limit Hold'em during like the 2004-2005 era. So I did well on Party Poker No Limit, Poker Stars No Limit, but I did the best in Hollywood Poker, which was, I don't remember what skin it was for, but Daniel Negreanu, I played Daniel Negreanu on there. I ran it up to large amount, I don't want to say it on there. I was playing up to 5,100 and Daniel Negreanu was in the game. And I saw him also play Dream Clown Limit Hold'em heads up and three-handed, very large, like 200, 400, or even 300, 600. But yeah, Daniel was torching off chips, so to say, and you know, that was kind of my first run at high stakes poker. I started from the bottom and then just grind away all the way to the nosebleed stakes and did well that first run. But it came to a point where I was like, do I really want to continue this? Also, rumors that one of the sites that we transfer money to, NetTeller, was in jeopardy. So I decided to just take everything off online and dabble in live and just like finish school. So that's basically what happened. NetTeller went down in like 5 to 6 months. So thank you for all the warnings from 2plus2.com. And I would play live occasionally, but basically I finished off school and moved to Santa Monica in 2007. So in 2007 was kind of funny because I don't know if you guys know who Green Dragon is on PokerStars, but she actually lived in the Baller building next to me. We both lived on Ocean, right next to the Pacific, right next to 3rd Street Promenade, and because we were both doing really well. And she was known as to have made a lot of heads up in PokerStars. Her name's Karen, and married to a buddy of mine, Tyler. But yeah, we were there and we didn't even know. We could be just like playing online and we were literally just like one building down, whereas a lot of people I knew, you know, grinding full tilt back then, yeah, I knew who they were. Didn't meet them in real life, but we see each other over and over. Actually going to have dinner with one of them after the show, Steinway. The other people there were like Phil UVA, Balls Deep X, Palomino. Shout out to Kristen. She moved to Colorado. For those of you who think women can't play, I know a ton of women crushers. So I think you should throw that out the window. And then during that time too, I would play live. So I think in 2005, I'd played with like Phil Locke, Antonio Sfindiari, John Giwanda live. And around 2007, 8, 9, I played with Johnny Chan, Alan Cunningham. I think Evelyn Ng was still playing Limit during that era. I don't remember. I did play with her online at Full Tilt. But basically, I chose Full Tilt over PokerStars because at that time, I would play 6 months of the year hard, like 6 days a week. Excuse me. And like, you know, 10 hours a day, very few breaks, and just like multi-table. And then 6 months, I used what I made to basically try to be a screenwriter because it still is one of my interests. I'm still working on it, but until I get to a point where, you know, I have something to show for it, we're just going to leave it in the back burner right now. Yeah, so my second stint at High Stakes was, you know, running it up in that era, and I played pretty large live. The highest I played online, PokerStars, like 200, 400 limit. No Limit, I think I played 25, 50 on Stars, but it would always be like, I have PokerStars open, but I don't regularly play to grind Supernova Elite, in which that was a very smart thing to do, like for a lot of people, because it was worth like 132,000 a year, even if you break even. But a lot of really good players like Matt Smaz, Suited Aces, LaPeste, Dustin, he was a house player here. I think he grinds at Hawaiian Gardens now. They were like break even, small winners, but because of Supernova Elite, they basically make six figures a year playing poker, which is, very similar to, say, being a house player here where, I'm subsidized, so whatever I win on top of my salary, this helps me become a professional poker player. So it's not just about, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into just like crushing poker itself and not, getting subsidized other ways. So I kind of hit around the community in Nosebleed, and then Black Friday hit, and I wasn't one of those people who had a lot stuck online because, I already knew the first time these things can get shut down really quickly and really fast. So I don't know, I only had like high four figures, maybe mid four figures when Black Friday hit. So it wasn't that bad because I was aggressively cashing out. One of the things that Full Tilt is the checks ended up being late, and then Full Tilt would subsidize like bonuses, be like, oh, I'm sorry, this check was late, and putting them, I'm just like, all right, whatever, as long as I get it. I wasn't hurting for money at that juncture. So that helped. So when Black Friday hit, the Cake Network was still active. I also saw Phil Locke there. I think he had a skin like Unabomber Poker or something. But I did okay on the Cake Network. Mostly was playing No Limit as well. And then just like back and forth going for projects plus poker. And then 2011/12/13, then I started playing live, high stakes. And this is the juncture where I was doing well in Limit Hold'em, No Limit Hold'em, and 7-card stud. I ran it up again, but just being Asian American, it's very difficult with the family issues. I mean, I know Joan Grimm's mentioned, and other people have mentioned that it's universal. Like in rounders, a lot of people don't necessarily view being a professional poker player as, a thing. I think that's changed. I don't know why other people fight it, like family members. If you're doing well, it should be easy to tell if you're doing well. Like, if you're torching things, if you're losing a ton of money week 1, week 2, month 1, year 1, it's very obvious. But if you've consistently done well and paying for everything and more, I don't think there should be a problem, especially in this day and age where people graduating from college can't find jobs. Even if they find a job, they can't pay for, the high cost of living now. Kind of is what it is. And yeah, so the bad thing was arguing with my family, which was totally unnecessary, and a lot of the pressure that Hold'em was dying, and just, high stakes was dying in general. I kind of forced my hand, and I heard people were playing PLO or going to mixed games, and I had 3 six-figure losses within 2-3 weeks. I completely underestimated the variance of PLO, and I also didn't really have a good grasp of the game at that time. Same thing with the mixed game. I played bad and ran bad. Bad combination. People obviously told me to stick to Hold'em, but I had to learn my lesson 11 years in, but it still happened. That's when Nicole Juergens and the real Uncle Abe were like, Wayne, you should beat a prop and do like broadcasts and stuff. So they encouraged me to be a house player, go live at the bike, get subsidized, just kind of like rake back, and basically the rest is history. Like, I've been happier since. In like 2013, I would never be caught dead as a house player, but you heard me talk with Sean Snyder, a bunch of people here, I talk with Garrett about it, and it's like, dude, like this is a lot less stress, and it's always an option. Like, it's not all about just like banging your head against the wall playing high stakes, because there is huge variance. It's very stressful. Unless people have been there, they don't really understand just, how stressful it is. So that's basically my personal poker story. And then I want to lead into what Live at the Bike kind of represents in the poker world. So there's been a lot of poker shows, a lot of formats, most notably high stakes poker, like the World Series of Poker. Those are probably the 2 biggest name shows and the most exciting because of the money involved. Where Live at the Bike comes in, and this is where I feel my involvement is very purely in line with Live at the Bike, is that it's practical poker. like real life experiences. I started from very low stakes, grinding all the way up, have played in nosebleed stakes, the biggest stakes in the room, in several times in my career. I probably wasn't like the best player, but I likely was a winning player, seen from results and just reputation in general. But honestly, these things you never know because the sample size is too small. Like Chris Moneymaker winning the World Series of Poker, or even like a very strong player like John Sin winning the World Series of Poker. It's not reliable. Yet when that happens, you get a big boost in your career. So live at the bike, like in order to display my chops, I've played all the way from 2-3 no limit to 25-50 no limit. I've played Doug Polk heads up. I played against a lot of competitive players. I play all the games, Limit Hold'em, PLO. If mixed game comes up, I want to play on there too. And I post all my major hands on my YouTube, the ones I played on Live at the Bike. I share some of my thoughts. I want to interview people and guests and so on. And yeah, so basically I feel like Live at the Bike is less so entertainment versus like the World Series of Poker and high stakes poker, which are based on more like the big money thrown around versus the people. Like you see a lot of the same faces, the same players, the same commentators. We're the same crew, and we're just like bringing to you like real poker in the LA area. And there's always been debate like, oh, Vegas poker versus NorCal poker versus LA poker versus Macau poker versus Atlantic City versus Foxwoods. But you get to see real LA poker here. Like if you play around in the LA community, you're going to see these same people actually playing. Whereas, you know, Stones is in NorCal, they tried Bellagio Pots in Vegas, and frankly, it'd be great to have all these shows because we get to compare and see things for themselves, for what they are, and we get to keep track and have a more realistic point of view rather than you having to be there or reading posts in 2+2 and like legendary things. Like in 2019, it's my opinion that LA is one of the better places, if not the best place, to play poker professionally because you could get subsidized, like being a house player. The people, the recreational players have a higher influx of regular money, whereas in Vegas you are relying on people coming from out of town, and while they may be worse players, it's not as consistent. So the money, already the variance from poker, the money can not go your way if you're running bad, and then you have to rely on another influx, which is players to, sustain the games. There was a period in Macau where it was just like, I missed that boat. I don't think I would want to live there as well, but a lot of high stakes players did well there. So this was just, choices in life. And I'm going to post in the Live at the Bike forums and have the other Live at the Bike people like, JJ Lagarza, Patrick Curran, Brian Arakaki, just post, and Ryan Feldman post their poker story, and you guys are free to post your poker story there. And you can basically see everybody's trajectory. And if somebody's doing something that seems interesting to you, yeah, try it out, because it might suit you better. And that's what we're here for. It's education and entertainment more so than pure entertainment, like Esfandiari and Daniel Negreanu talking back and forth. This is like real stuff that you encounter, and yeah, so that's why I feel Live at the Bike is a very important resource in the poker community, and just more practical, because there's a lot of training sites, like, they're all good, like Run It Once, Crush Live Poker, Upswing. I've heard a lot of good things about them. I check out some of their material from time to time, but I think Live at the Bike is the only resource where you get to see more practical adjustments, because when you analyze a hand in a vacuum, it's kind of like you don't know what the game conditions are, because the same hand played by even the same players, even at a different point of the day, may be different. So you have to adjust to the game conditions, the players, and just kind of go from there. And that's what you see for Live at the Bike. Like rivalries, even the same episode, can develop, and then all of a sudden people become more passive and more aggressive based on the hands before. So I don't think the straight hand analysis from from in the vacuum is good enough to necessarily be good enough. Where if you see the same people, the context situation, the rivalries, then you will see how hands develop and play in a more practical situation. And you get to see the commentators play on Live at the Bike, so I believe that it's basically us showing our chops and our credibility, so to say. We're not just like talking here. There's been in the past like commentators on some shows where they kind of like talk down on certain players. When it's like, who the heck are you? Like, remember, and this is a more drastic case, like Phil Gordon was commentating on Eric Lindgren. He said something was obvious, and it's like, okay, well, why don't you play with the cards face down and stuff like that, where it's like, us as the commentators Live with Bike, we play on the show, so we understand it's very difficult not being able to see the cards, and the whole chat and the whole, everybody else gets to see how the cards are going down. So I'm going to wrap this up and basically call Andrew Nemi, the legendary vlogger, and we're going to ask him first get his poker story, and then ask him a few questions.